Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from IPR365.com doing my report in an unusual location today. Not the geographic location, but my literal location right now is inside of a car. Don't worry, I'm not driving or else this would be our last video update together. Anyways, we do have Hurricane Danielle strengthening Earl and a lot to talk about in the tropics, so let's get started. And the reason I decided to do it, even though I'm kind of limited as to where I could do this update, is because it is a serious situation. Here is Earl nearing the Lesser Antilles here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It's strengthening clearly. It's moving straight west. We haven't seen any deviation from that at all, and indications are it should start to gain some latitude, but even that line I drew, in order to miss most of the islands, it would have to hook like that, and even then it still hits some of the islands. So it does look like Earl will make landfall in the islands, and that is our main concern. But we're going to start with Danielle up here since it is a large and powerful Cape Verde hurricane, one that I'm sure we're all tired of talking about. Here's the latest as of 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Hurricane Danielle. It was at 30.3 north, 57.9, 59.7 west, 105 mile per hour winds gusting to 125. Had been up to a Category 4 yesterday, very much like Hurricane Cindy of 99. I think that's a good analog for it. It's moving north-northeast now at 12, 970 millibars, weakening, heading on out, and it's only going to accelerate by Monday. Maybe loop around back here a bit, but not be a feature that we're going to have to worry about in our own neck of the woods, and at least not in the United States. Excuse me. You can see here on the model map, the models are all indicating this is going to do some kind of curving around way up in the North Atlantic. But again, as far as a direct landfall, Bermuda dodged a bullet, and there goes Hurricane Danielle away from Bermuda. You can see here it's caught the tail and it's getting pulled on out. There's Bermuda where that white dot is that I just drew, and you're not going to have to deal with Danielle anymore. All right, so it's fair to say Danielle is not going to directly impact anybody. Bermuda, you're going to be all right now. So since we sped through Danielle, let's talk about a system that, first of all, is speeding, and that is a much bigger threat, and by the time it becomes a hurricane, will definitely get top billing, I'll tell you that much. This is Tropical Storm Earl. As of 8 p.m. Eastern, it was at 16.5 north, 54.6 west. Winds were 65 miles per hour, gusting to 70, so it's closing in on hurricane intensity pretty soon. It is moving quickly west at 20, and I do mean quickly, 20 miles every hour straight west. 989 millibars confirmed by the Air Force. It is still expected overnight tonight to begin a little bit west-northwest, but we haven't seen any indication of that yet. We'll wait and see what happens, but it is expected to be a Category 1 and 2 hurricane as it goes through the northern islands, and then a major hurricane as it generally moves in the direction of North Carolina. But right now, anybody from the northern Bahamas and Florida all the way on towards Bermuda need to watch this, and there is always still the chance, a decent chance, that this can curve out to sea between the United States and Bermuda. But there is also the chance that if it does continue straight west and makes landfall like that and interacts with Puerto Rico and comes up, it could be a landfalling tropical cyclone in the United States somewhere along the southeast coast. Okay, now I did want to read to you the warnings we have because we do have a lot of them. We currently have a tropical storm warning, bear with me here, for Antigua, Barbuda, Montserrat, St. Kitts, Nevis, Anguilla, St. Martin, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Martin, and St. Bartholomew. And we also have a tropical storm watch for the British Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the Puerto Rico islands of Culebra and Vieques, if I said that right, and it's only more and more likely that Puerto Rico itself will be under some kind of watches and warnings. Again, a tropical storm warning means that conditions in the tropical storm force range are expected within that warning area in 36 hours, and obviously tomorrow and tomorrow night is going to be the time frame here to where Earl's really closing in, and if it keeps moving at these types of speeds, it could be closing in by this time tomorrow night or even making a landfall. How strong it is, we don't know. If it becomes a hurricane overnight tonight and explodes all day tomorrow, then we could be dealing with a strengthening hurricane moving through the islands, And you might think, but what if it's only a Category 1 or 2? Remember Maryland? That was only a Category 2. It felt like a Category 5. There were people who literally thought, did this thing blow up into a 4 or 5? It didn't. It was just strengthening, and that only worsens the impacts of those storms. Now here's Earl on the satellite imagery, and obviously the center was exposed, but it is now coming back under. The deep grays blowing up. It's becoming more symmetric, that comma apostrophe shape, if you will. It is becoming a system looking more and more like Earl's going to be a hurricane in the next several hours. Now the model guidance with Earl over the last few days, I've told you, I've been saving these just to give you some indication. You can see it started way out there. They were turning it by 45. Then they were turning it by 55. Then they were turning it by 60. Then by 65. Now they're turning it by 75. And if trends are any indicator, it's going to want to turn it near 85. So that's why if this holds up, you know, we're going to have to watch, because they tried turning it way out here, and look where it is now. So just think. What if this does indeed start to take a much closer track to the U.S.? In the short term, though, definitely the islands and areas of Puerto Rico and the Turks, Caicos, and the Bahamas are the first people who are going to be impacted, the first places impacted by Earl. Here's the satellite throughout the day, and look at how it just strengthening but exposed, and then at the end it's bursting. It still is dealing with some wind shear. Don't think it's in a perfect environment right now, because it's not. The latest wind shear analysis does show that the wind shear from Hurricane Danielle is blowing down right over the top of Earl, and that is not allowing it to strengthen as much as it will once it gets out of that. By the time it gets over here, it should be a major hurricane, at least a Category 3, if not a Category 4 hurricane. And if for some reason we do have a threat to the United States, then we're likely looking at a Category 3 or even Category 4 hurricane threatening the United States. So this gets more and more serious with time as we deal with it. Remember a few days ago, 97L, models were saying, hey, 97L could become a hurricane named Fiona, but it's going to be moving out at 55. Look what's happened to the models now. Now they're saying it's moving out at 60 or 65. Same thing with Earl. These things are sailing west, and these models have a far too northeasterly bias. Right now, this one could continue close to where Earl and Danielle are, maybe closer to where Earl is, and some of the longer range models are not pretty to look at, my friends. Look at this. This is the Canadian model, and look what it does. It brings Danielle out. Earl, it brings right through the islands, scraping Cape Cod, or I'm sorry, yeah, eventually scraping Cape Cod, but look at this, scraping Cape Hatteras, the southeast coast, very close. Hot on its trail is Hurricane Fiona. Okay, now that's the Canadian. Here's the Euro. Look at this. There goes Danielle. Here comes Earl, very, very close, maybe even hitting the Canadian Maritimes. And then here comes Hurricane Fiona taking a track like that towards the southeast coast. Not something you want to deal with. Taking a look at the system right now on satellite, you can see it is trying to become a depression. Could be one tonight or early in the morning tomorrow. And other than that, there's no real indicator that this won't strengthen into a hurricane. Again, looking at the wind shear profile, it's got favorable wind shear ahead of it. Earl's got favorable wind shear ahead of it. Ignore the yellow you see. It's actually going to be very favorable, especially when it gets towards the Bahamas. And Danielle's going to be out of here. And if we get anything moving in the Caribbean or the Gulf, things don't look that bad for development either. So, you know, this is what I'm telling you, folks. Hurricane season 2010 is getting rolling here. Even more stuff over Africa could be our next few storms. Sorry I had to rush through this like I said today. I'm a little bit out of my element. Tomorrow, we're going to be game as IPR365.com, your place to be for these video updates and more, as what will be Hurricane Earl heads directly for the United States Virgin Islands, areas of Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, Florida, North Carolina, Bermuda. Everybody needs to be on alert with this one. Looks like we're going to have a major hurricane on our hands. I'm Mike Naso from IPR. I'll see you next time.